around this breath work practice. Again, the most important thing, hey, black in the black environment is not good. But anyway, you can see my hand. Releasing that diaphragm. That is the most important thing. How you do that is up to you, but there's some basic things that I use in terms of this practice. And they are breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth. I count when I breathe in, and I make sure the in-breath and the out-breath are the same number. Doesn't matter what the number is as long as they're the same number. You can see that my back is free. I'm not leaning back or leaning forward. I'm not leaning on something, not leaning into something. And that diaphragmatic release thing is the most important thing, along with practice. So practice big, big, big. If you don't practice, then it's like, as I said a million times to a million different people, it's like trying to figure out how to run the fire truck when you're at the fire instead of when you're in the firehouse. When you have the opportunity to practice things, when you have the opportunity to go through things as many times as you want to with no consequences for anybody except for your own learning. And it's the same thing with practicing anything else. As you can see, I'm a musician, and so I practice lots of things lots of times when nobody's looking, because that way it seems like I'm totally good at it when everybody is. Hang on a second. But there's another basic thing I wanted to throw out today for people to ponder. And I'm, this actually goes back for me to walk and the talk kind of thing. From this point on, I might come on at 11:45. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But one of the things that I've realized is that being connected to clock time is not good for me, and I've known this for a long time. And unfortunately, because of the circumstances that we've all been living through, I've reconnected myself to clock time because I thought it was going to be useful. But then I'm like, you know what? So literally what I'm doing is I'm reconnecting myself to clock time. So I'm doing things on a regular schedule. And yet what I'm also doing is requiring other people to kind of adhere to that regular schedule, or I'm conveying this message to other people that adhering to a regular schedule is a thing that's really important. And now I'm not suggesting that schedules aren't good or that structure is not good. If it's good for you, it's awesome. And if that's something that you find really helpful, that's great. I don't. There are certain things, and I'm not talking about doing things when you wake up in the morning. So every morning I wake up, first thing I do is I go out and I do a kind of sit spot, sort of a breathwork practice. But it's not about between the morning and 9 a.m. Those are two completely different things. The sun does not rise at a certain time. The sun rises, and we've attached a time to that. It's a very different idea and a very important distinction, because this notion of clock time is something we've created, and we've created it for a variety of reasons having to do with industry and lots of sorts of things. But it has nothing to do with what's good for us as a species. Waking up when the sun comes up is a thing that we can do, not because it's 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. or whatever it happens to be, but because the sun's come up, and sort of it kind of wakes us up. And there's all this stuff from sleep study folks who talk about the relationship between light and who we are and how we are, and vitamin D and so on and so forth, right? There's lots of stuff about that. But there has nothing to do with clock time. It has to do with the rotation of the Earth and the cosmos and the galaxies and our interconnection to everything and energy and so on and so forth. And so when I do a certain thing at a certain time every day, the reality is that time, in the time in context of clock time as opposed to Earth time, is constantly shifting, because clock time goes junk, 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 even though it needs to be adjusted. Let's talk about leap year and a variety of other things. But there's this shift that happens with ultimately reality. That's nothing to do with clock time. And so I'm way better when I'm connected to that. So as I walk through the things that I do on a daily basis, you could call it a schedule, but it's not connected to clock time. It's connected to something that's far greater than that. And I really appreciate and enjoy being connected to that. So when the time comes to do something that has nothing to do with clock time, I like to do it. And so that means that doing this at 11:45 every day, because there is no 11:45 every day in the context of the larger reality, it's only in the context of a clock, is not good for me. And I don't think it's good for you. And so, I don't want to draw you into something that I'm doing that I don't even believe is good for me. Whether it's good for you or not, I don't know, but it's certainly a concern I'm not psyched about. And so I'm going to move away from that. And I will continue to do these every day, but I'm not going to be doing them at a specific time, just because in the context of our back to basics discussion today, This is not something that's good for me. So I don't want to be sitting here talking about stuff that's useful while I'm manifesting something that ultimately is not useful for me. So, but the breathwork thing totally is. I rely on it. I can't tell you how important it is for me, how it's changed my life. Again, very basic breathing practices. This is not some kind of complicated thing because, again, I've said this a million times. If it was really complicated, I wouldn't do it. And so I do it because it's simple and straightforward, and I do it because it affects my life. But yeah, so back just the basic steps again: into the nose, out through the mouth when you're breathing. Make sure you release your diaphragm. You want to do the count thing when you breathe. You want to make sure you practice, and you want to make sure that your back is somehow free. And it doesn't, you can sit on the floor. It doesn't really matter where you're sitting, as long as it's not someplace that's where you're gonna lean back into. Again, just because the effect that has on your diaphragm. But that diaphragmatic release is the most important thing. I can feel it when I do that. I mean, I can feel a change in in how I am physically when I just do that thing. So anyway, practice, 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 and I will see you guys at some point tomorrow. Hope you're having an awesome day today. It's a little cloudy here in northeastern United States. Up here we're in southern Maine, but it's still beautiful. And I certainly miss seeing all of you in person. Hope that someday we will be able to do that, and I look forward to that time. But